This is the most overused vocal effect in pop, house and R&B music today. And by overused, I actually mean it's super effective. All the top producers in the world use it on their vocals, sometimes without you even noticing it. So in this guide, I'll cover what this effect actually is, how it works, when to use it, and of course, my favorite plugins to achieve it. But before we get started, if you're looking to bring your production skills to the next level in just 12 weeks, check out our Producer Launchpad program. You'll get a personalized strategy session, one-on-one tutoring, weekly modules, group coaching sessions, detailed video feedback, discounts on some of the best plugins out there, and a lot more. If you're interested, check out the link below to join the waiting list, but with that out of the way now, let's get into it. So you probably guessed it from the intro, the effect I want to talk to you about today is Formant shifting. Formant shifting, in my opinion, is one of the most effective ways to transform vocal samples, vocal performances. You can use it in a bunch of different situations, as I'll show you later in this video. For those of you who don't know what Formant shifting is, it's a way to trick the ear of the listener into thinking that a vocal has been pitched up or down several semitones. I'm going to show you an example with this loop here that I made. I had to export it here because my laptop was having some issues. So we have the instrumental here and a vocal sample that I dragged here. First, let's give it a listen without any Formant shifting.
Come closer to me, come closer on me, come closer on me, come closer on me.
So very quickly, I used a dry vocal here on which I applied some reverb and some delay in parallel. If you're new to parallel processing, we have a full guide on it on our blog. But very quickly, the idea is to copy your signal into separate channels here, separate mixer tracks, and then set a reverb and a delay in this case, which are set to 100% wet. So the idea behind this, instead of just putting your reverb and your delay directly on the vocal, is that you can process your reverb and your delay separately. So here, for example, I have my reverb and I can then apply some EQ on it to shape just the sound of the reverb. So I'll just give you a listen here, the reverb just on its own. So you can hear there how I can just shape the sound of the reverb. I could apply distortion if I wanted to, saturation, and same goes for the delay. I'm applying some EQ on the delay specifically. I'm already getting sidetracked here, but this is just something I wanted to mention. Using parallel processing on vocals for me is absolutely essential. One of the quickest way to do it in FL Studio is with the Fruity Send. So you simply load up a Fruity Send. I've renamed one to reverb and the other one to delay. Go on your vocal mixer track, right click under any other mixer track and click sidechain. And then within the two Fruity Sends that you've loaded, just select the reverb and the delay. And you're now sending an exact copy to these mixer tracks. The only thing then when you actually apply an effect such as reverb is to make sure that it's set to 100% wet. So here my reverb is set at 100% wet and my delay here is also set to 100% wet, because we only want the effect in these channels. Okay, so that was a short aside on parallel processing, but I do think it's important to mention it in the context of vocals. Let's now give a listen to what Formant shifting actually does to vocals. I'm going to use little Alterboy in this example. I'll mention free plugins later on in this video, so don't worry if you don't have this plugin specifically. But let's just turn it on and see how it affects our song.
Come closer to me, come closer on me, come closer on me.
The easiest way to understand Formant shifting is with the concept of timbre. You've probably heard of the word timbre before. I'm not even actually sure that's how you pronounce it, but let's go with it. Timbre is basically this idea that different instruments playing the same note will sound completely different. So if you play a C5 on a piano, or if you play a C5 on a violin, they're going to sound completely different, even though it's the same note. And this is due to the frequency spectrum of that specific instrument. So let me quickly show you an example. I've loaded up a piano here in Spitfire Labs. I'm going to play a C note. So we can see the fundamental frequency here and then the harmonics on top. Let me switch to another instrument, let's say a synth. The fundamental frequency is exactly the same, but the harmonics are different. And this is what gives the sound its own texture. So when we talk about formants, it's more or less the same concept.
Come closer to me. Come closer to me. Come closer to me. Come closer. Come closer. Come closer.
And this is what gives the illusion of the vocal being pitched down or pitched up, even though it still remains exactly in the same key. Usually formant shifting plugins won't have too many controls. In the case of little Alterboy, you actually have pitch shifting as well. Usually you just have one knob, which lets you pitch or shift rather, shift the formants either down or up. Basically, you usually have 1 octave up or 12 semitones and 1 octave down. In the case of little Alterboy, you also have a drive knob, which adds some saturation to the vocal. And then you have a mix knob. In this case, it's set to 100% wet, but you could mix it with the dry vocal. One other thing I quickly wanted to mention with parallel processing. As you can see here, I've set my send channels for reverb and delay at the start of the chain. And then only do I have a little Alterboy affecting the formants. This means I'm sending a copy of the dry vocal into the reverb and the delay. So my reverb and my delay are not affected by the formant shifting because the formant shifting is happening after I'm sending a copy of the signal. So this actually creates a kind of cool effect if you listen. So you can hear there how the delay is actually on the original vocal. Now this is obviously an artistic choice. You could decide to have your formant shifting plugin right before you're sending your copy. And in this case, your reverb and your delay would be applied on the formant shifted vocal. The most obvious use case is just to make a vocal more interesting. So here my main vocal might not be as exciting as I want it to be. And so I could simply apply some formant shifting on it to make it a bit more interesting. Now, of course, you could automate the formant shifting. So let me just create an automation clip here. So in this case, I've shifted the formants down and then returning to the original vocal towards the end of the phrase. Another way you can use formant shifting on a main vocal would be to create a layer. So in this case, I would use parallel processing again. So on the dry vocal, load up a Fruity Send. I'm going to rename it directly to Formant, just so I stay organized. Right here, I'm going to right click, sidechain to this track and rename it Formant. I like my little colors to stay organized. Right click and select Formant. Let me load up little Alterboy. First thing, make sure to set it to 100% wet.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me.
All right, so let's see how that sounds with the main vocal.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me.
So what I could do here is to actually apply some EQ just to separate the formant shifted vocal from the main vocal. Maybe something like this.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me.
And let's throw in some stereo widening just to see how it sounds.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me.
And that's one way you can make your main vocal a bit more interesting. Now, another way I love to use formant shifting is for creative delays. So in this case, we have a sort of slap delay on the lead vocal, but I want to add another delay that will fill out some of these blanks here. So often what I'll do in this case is actually a fake delay. The idea is to actually copy the section you want to delay and just put it exactly where you want. So in that sense, it's not a real delay because you're not using a delay plugin, but you're just copying a specific section.
Come closer to me, to me. Come closer 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 on me. Come closer to me. Come closer to me. Come closer on. Come closer to me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me.
And so this just allows you to have a delay that's a bit more interesting instead of just having a repeat of the same sentence.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me.
I mean, that also works, but I just find it more interesting and more exciting to add a bit of Formant shifting. Of course, you can vary the Formant shifting. So for example, have a really low Formant shifting on one delay and then maybe shift it up a bit more on a second one. You're free to experiment, obviously.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me.
So Formant shifting is also a great way to spice up your delays. Another case where Formant shifting is really useful is when you need to tune your vocals. So if you use a plugin like Melodyne, you'll sometimes need to pitch certain syllables up or down to get them in tune. And if you need to pitch a syllable up by quite a few semitones, you'll often end up with what is called the chipmunk effect, where the voice is really squeaky and doesn't sound natural. In that case, what you can do is add a bit of Formant shifting to compensate for that chipmunk effect. So for example, if you're pitching a word up by 4 or 5 semitones and it doesn't sound very natural to you, use a bit of Formant shifting and bring it down to compensate for those harmonics that have been pushed up the spectrum. Finally, you can also use Formant shifting on basically anything you want if it sounds good to you. So although Formant shifting is initially meant for vocals, you can try and apply it on any synth or any sample or loop that you want and see what it gives you. So here, for example, I have a phase plant loaded. Let's see what it sounds like without any Formant shifting. And let's apply some Formant shifting, just see what it gives us. So it's kind of acting a bit like a filter, but not really. So feel free to try Formant shifting on anything you want, even though it's initially meant for vocals. Finally, let me show you my 2 favorite plugins for Formant shifting. The first one, as you guessed, is Little Alterboy by Soundtoys. This is not sponsored, there's no affiliate link. I just love their plugins. And Little Alterboy comes with some great presets here. It's just a great little plugin. You can pitch vocals up or down. You can use Formant shifting, as I showed in this video. You have different modes here which apply to the pitch. One mode that I really love is the robot mode, which basically sets your vocal to a single note.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me.
By default, I think the pitch when set at 0 in robot mode is a C. And so you could, for example, set it to D, for example. I believe this loop is in D minor.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me.
You then have a drive knob, which adds saturation to your sound, and a mix knob. The other plugin I tend to use quite a bit is MAutoPitch. Even though I have Little Alterboy, I love using this one. Now, this is a great free alternative if you need to auto-tune your vocals. So let's say we're in E minor. So here I've selected the notes in the E minor scale. And then you can decide how deep and how fast your vocal will adjust to the closest note within that scale. Now, of course, you don't have to use the tuning section here. You can simply use the Formant shifting section over here.
Come closer to me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer on me. Come closer to me. Come closer on me.
you have your standard Formant shifting, just like with little Alterboy. It goes down 1 octave and up 1 octave. You have your dry wet knob right here. And what the width knob does is create a copy that is slightly detuned, and this creates a stereo effect. Now you can't go too far with this knob or else it just sounds out of tune, but usually around 20 to 35, maybe 40 cents gives a really cool stereo effect to your vocal. So this works great if you're creating a layer, for example. You have your main vocal and then the layer with some Formant shifting, and then you can add some width just to create more space for that layer. That's it for this guide on Formant shifting. I hope you found it useful. Do let me know in the comments down below what your favorite plugins for Formant shifting are, and also let me know your favorite use cases. When do you like to use Formant shifting? Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.